Hello, everyone. We are back. We are back for another season of the Elevate Life podcast. Listen, I took a pause this past year. I needed to take a pause because I had some projects to work on, and Sister Girl can't do everything. But we are back to another season of the podcast. This podcast, if you are wondering, is for women, particularly Black women who are starting over again from loss and pain. And we are here to just have conversations. We're going to talk about the things. We're going to do the do, right? And we are here to help you start over again with empowerment, purpose, and joy. Now, we recognize that one of the most constant things in life is transitions and the need to start over again. So we are here to help you. Our listeners, we are here to help you build a new version of yourself as you transition by reimagining a world where you are empowered to be fully yourself with greater life, greater clarity, greater wisdom, and boldness. I am your host, as you know, Jirla Prevalon. I'm a 1.5 generation Haitian immigrant. And I'm saying that because it's important for you to know my context. 1.5 Haitian generation immigrant means I have fluidity in two different cultures. In the Haitian culture, I was born in Haiti, grew up there, went to school there, and I'm fluent in the Haitian culture and language and everything Haiti. But I also grew up here the second half of my adolescence in America. And so I know a lot of Americanisms, Biggie Smalls, Wu-Tang Clan, all of that stuff, I know it. So because of that, I have engaged in women who have seen trauma both in Haiti and in the US. So that's why I'm here professionally. I am a licensed therapist and ordained minister, a certified trauma informed coach, and the CEO of Elevate Her International. I'm married to an amazing man. I'm the mother of three amazing sons. And since the last time I was here, I'm a brand new grandmother. Yes, 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 yes. In this podcast, though, it is made possible and it is in connection to the nonprofit that I run and founded, Elevate Her International, where we have a mission and vision to empower women to heal from trauma, grow in faith, and thrive in purpose. And we hope you listeners, you too will experience healing for the pain you have experienced with empowerment, faith, clarity, wisdom, and boldness. This season, y'all, say this season. This season, y'all, we have a brand new series for y'all. It is so big, I could not do it alone. If you know me, you know that I don't do anything alone. I'm always bringing some sister girl, someone to support the work, someone to help lift the load. And I brought a sister girl. You've heard her before. You've seen her before. She's the amazing. She has been a guest and y'all loved her on social media. She is my sister in love. And today and for the rest of this season, she will be my co-host. Yeah, yes, she will be my co-host. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, I'm hoping gentlemen are listening to us as well. Welcome to the Reverend Charisma Jean-Marie. Please tell us about yourself. You know, I always make a big deal about you and what you do, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, the expectations are too high. It's too high.
Listen, you always need a sister girl to hype you up, okay?
Right.
I'm
That's right.
definitely your hype woman, all right?
Yes. Appreciate the hype. And I'm always an honor to hype you up as well. It's great to be here, y'all. I'm here to co-labor with Jirla as we dive into this notion of relationships. For those who do not know me, I am Charisma Jean-Marie, an ordained minister with the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. I'm a spiritual advisor and coach and a nonprofit executive. And I'm just so excited to be here.
Yes. Y'all, I told you she's amazing. Now, she has some amazingness, that's going on. When I started thinking about this series, I called her up And y'all, she took my little bit of plan. She's like, you need to invite this person, that person, and this person. And do we have a season for you? All because of my sister in love, who came and partnered with me to do this series. Now, in the work that I do as a therapist, as a pastor, as a coach, and yada, 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 there's always this thread in my work, and that is relationships. I cannot do the work that I do without relationships. I rely on relationships. Our programs are based on relationships. Everything we do, I do it because I see the need and necessity for relationships for us to grow. In fact, every intake, every assessment, every treatment plan, we are always inquiring of the people, of our clients, and leaning to how are they doing in relationships? How are they building stability, comfort, and groundedness and belongingness in relationships? We are relational beings. Let me say it again.
Yes,
We are relational beings. And that means we are hardwired for belonging, empathy, and love in relationships. We recognize that our deepest wounds can sometimes happen in relationships. But y'all, our deepest forms of healing can also happen, will also happen in relationships. So in each episode, we will have honest conversations about connection, about conflict, about vulnerability, about community. This series is an invitation. It is an invitation. So, Reverend Charisma, help us kind of like lay the groundwork. Give us some disclaimers, some words of caution or words of preparation, not just caution, but preparation for this series for people who may have never engaged in these types of conversations, who might just look at us and be like, what y'all talking about? What are we doing in relationship? Why don't you help
yeah.
us set the foundation a little bit for what we about to do?
Yeah. Again, I am excited about this series. It was a easy yes for me to join you to co-host this series on relationships because I truly do believe, I'm convicted. I start with my foundation in my work and my being is that we're relational beings. We're called, created to be in purpose as it relates to relationships, first with God and with one another. And one is not more important than the other. They're equally important in God's sight,
That's
right?
right.
So oftentimes when we enter into this conversation with relationships, depending on where we are theologically, we often think that it's more important to be in a relationship with God than it is with others. But that ain't what the scripture says, right? When the lawyer came to ask God, what is the greatest way to enter the kingdom or eternal life? And Jesus responded with saying, you got to love God with all your heart and to love your neighbors as yourself. So
That's
there are
right.
three components to relationships, right? There's this idea that we love God with all of our hearts, but then that second piece we often miss, right? In terms of how to be in relationship. The standard of how I'm in relationship with others is how I'm in relationship with myself.
That's right.
So it's important for us to be in relationship with ourselves, just as equally it's important for us to be in relationship with others, just as equally it is for us to be in relationship with God. And so as you enter into this space, let me just go ahead and declare this. This is sacred space. It's
That's right.
sacred because God is present where two or three are gathered. God is in the midst, right? And so God is present, but God is not just present. Dear, you and I, we're present. We're intentional. And the others who will
That's right.
join us are present. And that's what makes it sacred. And I think it's important for us to declare that this is sacred space. Because perhaps there are going to be information, new information, old information, information that might sound different than what you know or understand, information that might be challenging to you. There's going to be information exchanged. And because this is sacred space, here's the invitation. The invitation is not be quick to disclaim or to argue with or to deny or
Yeah.
to declare. The invitation is to be curious. Here's a spiritual discipline I invite you to. Be curious, turn to wonder. Rather than making a claim or deciding whether this is true or not, we invite you to ask questions, to be curious, to turn to wonder. Let that be a spiritual discipline for you. Because new information, just because it may be different, because it may feel uncomfortable, does not mean it's wrong. We can agree to be different and no one be wrong,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
so our
That's so
intent
good.
our intent with this work, this conversation is not to harm you. And so I think if you
Yeah,
understand that, even when you hear something that is different or something that you might not like or disagree with, I think it's important for you to hear that we're not here to harm you.
that's
But
right.
new information is about growth. New information is about elevation. New information is about the ways in which we evolve into something else, the way in which we evolve to hear from God in anew. And I don't know about you, but I'm always looking to hear from God anew. I'm always looking forward to the ways in which God draws me close anew,
Yeah.
not the same way. And that is our hope for this work, is that you leave this place better than you came.
That's right. That is right. I love those disclaimers because, we are church girls.
Yes, we are.
We grew up in the church. We grew up in a space where you weren't really allowed to ask questions, or if you asked questions, you would be side-eyed. You wouldn't really be a part of the in crowd.
That's
In
right.
this space, it is important to ask questions because relationships is such a fundamental part of our mental well-being that we need to really lean in and have conversations, because the reality is every last one of us have been told something about relationship
That's right.
that's keeping us, holding us hostage, holding us from not really fully engaging in our true authentic selves with
Mhm.
one another, with ourselves, and with God. So this is a conversation that we're hoping will liberate you. But before liberation, y'all, before liberation comes a lot of struggle, comes a lot of pain, because you will probably hear something that you will take home and think about it and wonder, what did they just say? What did I just hear? We're
Mhm.
hoping that it is a challenge, because before liberation comes a struggle comes a challenge, comes a,
Wrestling.
it comes that wrestling.
That's right.
And we need it to change because we need one another to grow. And as you can see, the world is filled with people that don't look like you, that don't act like you, that don't think like you, that don't believe like you. And we still need each other. So
That's
we
right.
need to deconstruct some things that we have learned about relationships so that we can have a beloved relationship with ourselves, God, and one another.
That's right.
So let's get into it. Now, Reverend Charisma, you talked a little bit about God, relationship with God. And one of the reference verse you will hear us talk about, and later on in the podcast, we have another guest that will talk about this verse in Genesis 2:18. It is not good for a lot of translations use man to be alone. And a lot of times that verse is translated, or that part of the verse is translated to being setting the stage for relationships between a man and a woman. Is that the case in this verse? What do you see in this verse? When you see this verse with the work that you've done and the work that you've leaned into and the experiences you've had, is this verse only limited to a man being in a relationship to a man? Let's talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. The verse is often referenced to a romantic relationship, marriage. And because that verse is often understood and referenced for marriage in the church, in the Christian context, marriage has become such an important elevation of life. It
Yeah,
has become such an important, it almost is an idol. And
idol.
for those who are single, you're almost not in, right? You are still in the children's table. You're not an adult, right? Because I'm 47, and because I'm single, there are spaces, particularly even with my family, even with my mother, right? There's this understanding that I'm not able. I'm still a child and treated still as such.
Yeah.
That there's a culture in the church. There's a that fosters a kind of tradition that elevates the status of marriage and ignores
Because the
singlehood.
Bible said.
Because
Because
the
the
Bible
Bible said it's not good for a man to be
to be
alone.
alone.
They need to be married.
Right. So you're absolutely right. Oftentimes that translation, it's not good for a man to be alone. The proper transition is it's not good for human to be alone. So
Mhm,
it's not just a male, but for human beings to be alone. Right.
mhm.
So God creates, and like Diola said, we're going to have a biblical scholar come to really break down this scripture. But on the surface, let's just give the surface understanding of the text, right? And so if we remove the word man to place human, because the reality is there are many different translations when we're talking about human beings, the translation is man, because in those days with writing, man represented humans,
Mhm.
right? And so
Children, women,
human
all of that
beings,
gets.
all of it,
Mhm.
right? And so if we said it is not good for humans to be alone, already it means different, right?
Yes.
If we remove the man to human, the proper translation, right, for the representation of human beings, all of God's creation, then the scripture is saying it's not good for human beings, God's creation, to be alone. And so
Yeah.
what that means then is we're not just talking about one kind of relationship.
That's
It
right.
is marriage, but it's not just marriage. It means we're not created to be alone. It is important for us to
Yes.
have and form sisterhood and brotherhood. It is important for us to form familiar relationships. It is important
Yes.
for us to form friendships. It is important for us to form community relationships, church relationships.
That's
It's
right.
important for us to have male female relationships that's simply platonic.
That's
It is
right.
important for us to be in relationship, in community with other human beings so that the glory of God's creation can shine.
That's right. That's right. That is so good. That is so good. I'm wondering of our listeners who are listening right now who has never heard this before,
Mhm.
never been given permission to be in relationship because God says it's not good to be alone.
That's right.
I just want to sit with that a little bit because I often hear a lot of people saying, I can't be friends with, girls. I can't be friends with blah, blah, blah. I'm a loner. I like my space. I don't like hanging out with people. People are trouble. When the Bible is saying it is not good for humans, for you, for me to be alone,
Yeah.
to be lonesome,
Yeah.
right?
So let me say, I don't think the text ever challenges our personalities,
Right.
right? And so I do think there are personalities where you may be shy, you may be a loner. Those things are valid and those things are true, and I want to embrace that, right? But being a loner does not mean you're not in community,
That's right.
right? Being a loner simply mean you might need time, right, to yourself. But
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that
All the
you walk
time to
alone.
yourself.
That's right. It doesn't mean you walk alone. Jesus, I believe, was a loner. I believe Jesus was a loner. When you look at the Gospels, the places in the Gospels that talks about Jesus' life and practice, there are often times the writer would say Jesus stole away and went
Mhm.
away to pray, or Jesus went alone. He separated himself from the group in many different ways because I believe Jesus was a loner. Jesus needed time to process information, and oftentimes he needed to process to go forth and pray,
Yeah.
right? So being a loner is not the problem, right? It's
Yes.
how you understand being alone, right?
That's
So
right.
being alone or being alone and needing time to process, needing space for yourself, it's a beautiful thing.
I
It
love
does
that you
not, though, separate you
yeah.
from community.
I love that you brought that point up because oftentimes we relegate the fact that we want space. Because I do believe when you do go on your own to get some space, to regroup, to reset, and whatnot, all that is necessary. And some personalities need more alone space than
That's right.
others.
That's right.
Some do, while at the same time being accountable to a community. Who knows your name?
That's right.
Who knows you're here? Who knows your purpose?
Yeah,
Who knows your likes and dislikes?
that's right.
Who knows you are alive? Who
That's right.
knows your joy? Who knows your sadness, right?
And that's what community gift us with, right?
Exactly.
Community gift us with affirmation and accountability, right? So the affirmation in community where you're loved, where you're seen, where you're affirmed,
That's
where
right.
you're reminded of who you are and who you belong to. But then accountability, right? Accountability also is a form of love. It is, you can't do that. Did you do that? Did you say that? There, right?
Accountability.
Accountability. And
Hmm.
so again, to be alone does not excuse our mandate, our God mandate to
Yes,
be
yes,
in community, to walk with other people. I also want to
yes.
name, Jola. I also want to name, because we're pastors, right? I want to also bring to the table the lived experiences of people who's been in community and who's been hurt,
That's
right?
right.
And because you've been hurt, right, your desire to be in relationship in those ways seem too painful, whether it's relationship, whether it's friendship, right? Whatever those things are, whatever the kind of relationship you were in, and you experience some type of disappointment or hurt, I want to name that and say that is the risk of being in relationship,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
When we're in relationship, we're not saying it's all rosy. No, there are seasons in our relationships where disappointment comes, hurt comes, right? A lot trauma comes, right?
That's right.
But I also want to name what Jula said in the beginning of her welcome, that because we're created to be in community, it's also where our healing comes,
Hmm.
right? There are times healing have to come from separating from the community so you can go in solitude so that you can kind of get whatever you need in your alone time. But I don't know if full healing and wholeness comes, July,
Yeah.
absence of community.
It doesn't.
If you are still isolated from community, isolated from those relationships that hurt you, then I would suggest you ain't healed yet.
Right.
That's a form of, it's the, what's the word I'm looking for, July? It's the guards we put up,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
protection, the shields we put up, because we ain't healed yet, and we don't want to get hurt anymore. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so we do these things to protect ourselves, but that don't mean we heal.
Now, I know these subjects are controversial, and I know we will get some pushback because we live in a very lonely and isolated society presently for a number of reasons.
Mhm.
I love the gift of social media. We have social media that has separated us from people. And I believe social media has caused us to not know how to do conflict resolution well.
Mm,
Because when you're behind a screen, it is hard to feel the emotion, the energy of a person. So you can easily dehumanize or not even want to connect or, cut off people and so on and so forth. When the person is in front of you, face to face, it's harder to do that. Now, we're talking about things that are basic. I do understand, like Reverend Charisma said, that you have been hurt. I've been in sessions with people who have experienced hurt and pain by family members, a lot of which is family members, because the people closest to you are sometimes the one that creates the greatest pain in your life. As growing up in the Haitian culture, we've received messages from our families to tell us, we don't want you to make friends. We don't want you to have friends. We don't want you to connect with people like that. We don't want you to trust people. So we understand this thing. We're on our own healing journeys too. Okay. We're not there yet. So we understand that there's pain, but we also have to recognize the different things that are presently happening that's causing us to not be in relationship with one another.
yeah.
The different things that are in our society right now that's playing against this very thing that God says is not good,
Yeah.
right? It
So
would you that is good, which is relationships.
yeah. So let's talk about cultural trauma and the transition between one country to the next, one setting to the next, right? It's a form of cultural trauma. We've talked about this before. Culturally, so my parents, for those who don't know, my parents are from Haiti. I'm Haitian American. I was born and raised here, but very much claim Haiti as
That's
home
right.
as well. Yeah, I grew up in a family where it's six girls, three boys, big family. And I grew up, my mom and dad telling me, I got too many sisters and brothers to make friends. I don't need to make friends outside.
That's right.
What they really was saying, or what they really was doing from a place of love, is its protection is caution, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because of the many ways that the American culture, if we'll be honest, has been stereotyped, for the many ways the American culture is so different from the Haitian culture,
Mhm.
for the many ways that immigrants come into the country and they want to live under the grid. They
Mhm.
don't want no attention. They don't
That's
want no
right.
problems because we're surviving.
Mhm.
And so what survival does is it calls us to first be cautious, then engage,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so when you're surviving, right, your first response is caution, it's suspicion,
Exactly.
right? It's
Exactly.
pause, right? It's separation, right? Before engagement. That's what
Mhm.
survival looks like. Right. And so there's a place for that in our story. There's a place in that in our story. There's a place in that in our lives as it relates to survival. But
That's right.
here's what this podcast, this conversation is calling us to: a place of living and not surviving.
Yeah.
Right. And so the way in which my mom and dad survived, and that's very much what they did. They survived and they knew how to survive. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful
Yeah.
that they gave me the skills to survive. So there's not a thing I can walk into and not survive it. I know how to survive. We're survivors. Right.
That's right.
But
That's right.
this conversation, particularly for those who share the stories that we have culturally, this conversation is calling us not just to survival, but to a place of thriving, to a
Yeah.
place to live in a way where survival is not our destiny.
Yeah. That's right.
Living in abundance is.
That's
So
right.
it is going to cause us to wrestle with. It is going to cause us to question. It is going to cause us to think about the ways in which we were formed and shaped and raised from the people who loved us.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot that there's some things my mom and dad gave me that I need to leave at 39 St. Paul Avenue, my
That's
household,
right.
my
That's
childhood
right.
household, right? Home.
Leave it
Leave it
behind.
there. Because I don't want to just survive. I want to live in abundance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's the promise that God gave us, a life of abundance.
Now, I know many people hearing this, you would have grown in a family perhaps similar that gives similar, instructions for living because those were instructions for survival for living. So perhaps you have been giving similar instructions for living and it's just made you awkward in relationships. You don't know boundaries. You don't know whether you're coming and going in relationships. You take up way too much space in relationships. You take up little space in relationships. You don't know whether to call, whether to lean in, whether to fall back. You're just all over the place in relationships because I believe that's what it does. When you live under such caution, such survival mechanisms, you're just a little awkward when it comes to socializing and having these relationships, right?
Mhm.
And you may be wondering, well, what do I do now? I say the first thing is be aware. Be aware that this thing is in you. Be
That's right.
aware that you've been walking in a path where you haven't been given great tools to manage relationships. You have not been given all the tools. You've been given one tool, it's caution. Because be clear, there are some people you need to know how to be cautious around.
That's right.
You can't trust everybody. Be
That's
clear.
right.
That's one tool our parents gave us, but that's not all the tools in
That's right.
relationships. We needed other tools. We needed tools to teach us how to manage conflict. How do you have the hard conversations? I was talking to a young lady not too long ago, and I was like, yeah, when I'm in a conflict with a friend, I'll call them up and say, you know what? What you said, offended me. Let's talk about it. They're like, wait, you people do that? how do you do that? I was like, what do you mean, how do you do that? You just called them out. They're like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. That's not what we do in our generation. They were in their 20s, right? And so I began to give them little tools. I was like, okay, I know at this stage, it might be hard for you to go and have the conversation with a friend. Why not start with the low hanging fruit? She's like, what do you mean by the low hanging fruit? And I'm like, well, in everyday life, there are opportunities for you to set boundaries, and you don't because we've been taught that setting boundaries is not good. So, for example, when you go to the restaurant and they give you the wrong meal, right? What do you do? Do you eat the wrong meal that they've given you, or do you tell them to take it back? They're like, "Ooh, this is good." I'm like, these are low hanging fruits where you practice and exercise your voice. You practice saying no. You practice having boundaries. You practice being present. You practice taking up space in relationship. You practice hearing your voice so that as you move in relationships, when there's conflict, now it's not such a big deal. Now you're not having like upper lip sweat. You're not, having a whole conniption over what do I do with this relationship? It feels like I need to cut off this relationship. You do not have to cut off this relationship if you've been learning to have difficult conversations.
That's right.
And so we can start with low hanging fruit. So for those of you who are listening and you don't know, where do I go from here? This is me. Y'all talking about me. I'm convicted that it is not good to be alone, that God wants me. His desire for me is to be in beloved relationships and communities. What do I do? Start with having your hands open.
Yeah.
Start with a desire. Some people have cut off the desire to even have relationships. What I would say is lean into what Reverend Charisma said is lean into curiosity. Lean in with hands open. Lean in with being aware that there's these things that play. Lean in a little bit. I would say start there.
And I will say this, there's a difference between what Jeremiah is saying about being open to relationship versus being in relationship with someone who's actively harming you.
That's right.
So for those who are listening, we are not saying to stay in a relationship where the harm and trauma abuse is active, right? There are relationships that we need to walk away from. There are relationships that we need to say bye-bye to.
That's
right?
right.
Relationships that are actively harming you, abuse, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, sexual, social, right? Any form of abuse, where there are relationships that is active, we need to walk away from them. God does not call us to be in relationship
That's
where
right.
abuse is inevitable, where abuse is active. So that is not what we're saying. We're
That's right.
saying don't be in relationship with people who actively harm you. But that does not mean that you should not be in relationship. There's a difference. So I need you to hear us and hear us in a way where life abundance, right, is possible. If you're in a relationship with anybody, family members, right, romantic relationships, friendships, pastors, churches, Christian people, all of that happens, right?
That's right.
Where abuse is active, where trauma is constantly evolving into a place where you are being harmed, right? Because trauma evolves.
Yes, it does.
It evolves where you're constantly, so you got to ask yourself, am I harmed here? Or am I doing the harming?
Yep.
Relationships where you're constantly doing the harming,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So if the relationship is not healthy in any way, those are not the relationships we're encouraging you to turn to wonder and be open.
That's
We're
right.
encouraging you to walk away because God does not call us to be in places and spaces that harms us, right? We're
Now,
simply saying that God calls us to relationship, to be
That's
in
right.
relationship so that our life is abundantly.
yes.
So if there is a place in you where your life is not abundant, that ain't what we're talking about,
That
y'all.
is not it. That is
That
not
ain't it.
it.
That's not
That
what
is
we're talking
not it. Yeah. We're talking about good, wholesome, loving, warm relationships that make you feel warm and fuzzy, relationships that you want to invest in, relationships that you want to fight for, relationships that sees you as good, that makes you want to be even better, that makes you want to thrive. Those are the relationships we're talking about. Relationships that make you stand a little taller, relationships that inspire you even, right? Relationships that encourages you to be the best that you can be, that every year you're growing in
That's
those
right.
relationships, right?
Relationships that bring you pleasure.
Yes.
Relationships that gives you challenge, that challenges you to be better.
Yes.
Relationships that elevate you to a place of relationships that gives you the kind of joy the world didn't give and the
Yep.
world can't take away. Relationships that cause conflict
That's right.
because this idea that you're in a relationship and there's no conflict is a fantasy.
Yeah.
In any relationship, there's conflict,
Yeah.
right? But is it the kind of conflict, right, that's worthy of working out, that's worthy of resolve, that's worthy of staying in?
Yes.
Because being in relationship, Yola, with another human being, right? This idea, even let's go back to marriage, this idea, Yola, I tell people I counsel all the time, this idea that one becomes, two become one, that is not a one event, the day of marriage. It is a lifetime
It
commitment.
keeps
It is not
happening. Yep.
one becomes one. It is the one becoming one.
That's right.
Becoming is active. You're constantly growing into the oneness.
Absolutely.
But that is not just in marriage. That is in all relationships. When you are
Yes.
in relationship with one another, what you're saying is we're merging in a way where we become one to a certain degree.
That's right.
We're becoming one to a certain degree. Me and Dola, we've been friends for years. We're not just related because of marriage. We've been friends before she was married to my
Yeah.
brother. And there are seasons in our lives in the becoming of friendship, right? Where she's challenging me and I'm challenging her. She liked me a little less and I like
Right.
her a little less. That's
Right.
reality in
Yep.
a relationship, right? But it's in those seasons where we've grown to love and appreciate our relationship in such a way where we protect it because this
Yes.
is something sacred. I trust her. I trust her with my
Mhm.
dreams, my passions. I trust her not just with my life, but with the thing God has given me, that
Yeah.
God has said to me. I don't trust everybody that way.
Right.
But that trust was birthed out of those seasons where we were tested.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Right? So relationships with people doesn't mean it's not tested, that conflict is not inevitable, right? So I think it's important for us to understand the ways in which we mean what it means to be in
In
relationship.
relationship.
Conflict is inevitable,
It's
right? Being
inevitable.
challenged, right? Not liking one another, right?
Yep.
Those are
Yep.
seasons, right? There are relationships, girl, I have with people where there's seasons we ain't talk because we don't like each other.
Right.
Maybe there's
Right.
seasons where we come again and say, I might not like you in this season, but I need you
I
because I'm in
need
relationship with
you.
you. I
It's the
love
need
you.
for me. It's the need for
That's
me.
right.
Yeah. I feel like, in this season, there are so many options to occupy our time that we don't spend the time to invest in relationships. Meaning doing the reciprocal thing in relationships. Meaning you call me, I call you. You text me, I text you. You check in on me, I check in on you. There are so many options, meaning TikTok, scrolling on social media, spending your time alone, being bothered, not hearing another story and blah, blah, blah. It takes investments to manage a relationship. It
That's right.
takes time. It takes
That's right.
commitment. It takes a covenant to manage relationships. We're not just talking about a marriage covenant. We're
That's right.
talking about a relational covenant. It takes that to manage a relationship. And that's what I'm hoping for our listeners. Now, this is not therapy. We are not doing therapy on this
Yeah,
podcast. We're having conversations.
that's right.
If you hear something that resonates, if you hear something that just tugs your heart, if you hear something that's convicting you, write it down, investigate, be curious, go to a friend, go to a colleague, go to a pastor that you trust, go to a family member that you trust. Continue this conversation, engage with people. If you feel a challenge, don't run from it, sit with it. Sit with the challenge. I'm hoping something we've shared today and something we will be sharing in this series will challenge you so that you can grow into these beloved relationships that we're hoping for. Because my life is full in relationships. I have great relationships around me, and I'm hoping the same for you all. I really am.
Amen.
So we're about to wrap up. We're about to wrap up. Now, this is just a teaser, y'all. This is just the intro. We haven't even gotten into the big parts of the podcast yet. This is just the intro. We wanted to establish the foundation. We wanted to establish where we're going and our posturing as we're moving into these conversations. Sharizna, is there anything else you hope that our listeners get throughout this series?
Yeah, this conversation is about relationships, all forms of relationships. And so we'll dive deep to the different various ways that human beings are called to be in relationship in community. So again, I encourage you, invite you, grab a friend, grab
Yep,
a husband or a wife, grab a family member, child, grab your
that's
mama.
right.
My mama need to be in this. Have someone who you can journey alongside with. This is a journey. This is a conversation, but this is also a journey that we want to walk alongside you with. My hope for you, my prayer for you, that as you tune in, that you will be different. The last episode from the
Yes,
first episode, you're going to
that's
hear
right.
something, that God is going to plant something in your life. You're going to get curious about something, and you are going to grow and elevate to your best self in
That's right.
2026.
That's right. Well, we're just about done, but I want to leave you with an affirmation because we believe that every last one of you deserve to be in good, wholesome relationship. Here's the affirmation. Write it down, repeat it somewhere, or you can even write your own affirmations about relationships. Here it is. I am worthy of receiving love and I'm worthy of giving love because I was created for relationships.
Beautiful.
Thank you all so much for listening. We will see you next time with another episode of the Elevated Life Podcast. See you all soon.
Bye.